But this is a business first for us. I've never aired these on the podcast specifically. For the last 9 months, I've been just throwing these screen recordings up on YouTube. This year, our goal is to make $100,000 as a freelancer. So in this video, let's go in and talk about business income, how much revenue I made that month, how much I spent in the business. I've recently started tracking other things like proposals and leads and going to the pipeline side as well. So I'm going to jump into Notion and share the dashboard, all the KPIs that I track. And it gets so rewarding to see of the last 13 months, everything that's gone into it so far. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another powerful episode of Marketing by Design. This is entry number 90 of this podcast, which means we've been running for 90 straight weeks. Not that that is a milestone in and of itself, but this is the first time I'm going to be doing a monthly retro style episode. And if you guys haven't kept up to date with my personal content, my business, I run a design and marketing agency, and I started full time in February of 2024. And as soon as I started doing that, every month I've gotten to the habit of recording a monthly retro. Jay Klaus is the one that inspired me to do this, of Creator Science, basically a practice to record everything financially, leads wise. I've added in a couple other metrics that I track every month. And for the last 9 months, I've been just throwing these screen recordings up on YouTube. This year, our goal is to make $100,000 as a freelancer. So we're calling it kind of the road to 6 figures. And I'm going to record this special episode for the podcast specifically. But this is a business first for us. I've never aired these on the podcast specifically. They are all up on YouTube for the last 9 months. I guess there's a little bit different of a vibe to there. If you guys want to see the video versions of those will be linked. But yeah, like I said, this is a podcast first, and I'm a little bit nervous to do it. And that's why I started doing it in the first place, was to release my money mindset, any self-limiting beliefs that I have, which were a lot getting started in the business, but awareness around what you're spending, what you're making, and also the transparency is really big for me. So in this video and all the retro structures, what I do is basically just go in and talk about business income, how much revenue I made that month, how much I spent in the business. I've recently started tracking other things like proposals and leads and more into the pipeline side as well, and a little bit of content stuff. So how many LinkedIn followers I have, and also the size of my mailing list, because those are 2 KPIs that I am tracking for 2025 as well. So I'm going to jump into Notion and share the dashboard. This is where I record everything, and I have a couple of software screenshots that I put into each of these pages. So this right here is an aggregated view of all the KPIs that I track. And it gets so rewarding to see of the last 13 months, everything that's gone into it so far, which is really cool. But this is the filtered database table where I have just this year's. So filtering it by that, and that way I can start to calculate, see how close we are to the road to 100K. But I'm also going to break down the nuances of what we spent money on, what accounts we made money on, what the projects were, and just really dive into it on that front, so you guys will know everything about the business and everything we did to generate the income we got. So I'm going to set a calculation sum here. So the end of March 2025, we currently have 9 active accounts. Our revenue in March was $11,081.67. Our expenses for March at a high level were $2,534.78, which is a new all-time high. And our personal expenses, so rent, groceries, gifts, quality of life, stuff like that, was $2,795.65. We have 4 outbound proposals. Our LinkedIn follower count was 4,305, so 4,305 LinkedIn followers. And the size of our mailing list is 206, which is down 5 from last month because I did some list cleaning and retagging of our ConvertKit account. So if we go into the details of March, I'm going to open the entire page here. These are all screenshots of the software we use. So if you guys haven't been following along, we use Moxie to manage all of our direct deposits from clients. That's how we send invoices. And we also use Monarch Money, which is basically like a top level aggregator. It sits on top of all of our bank accounts and it's super helpful because it's able to tag them as business, personal, etc. And it just goes a long way for us. So these are the screenshots of both of those. And like I said, I blanked out the client field because I was in a position at one of these where I did share a lot of these. I went into the software, I went into Moxie, I went into Monarch Money and shared the screen recordings. But luckily, this is for audio first, so I don't have to worry about that. So we had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 transactions in terms of revenue in March. We had $440 from a monthly site management. March 3rd was a deposit of $180 for website management for our clients in Marysville. March 3rd was a $2,000 milestone project for wrapping up a website for our partners out in Salt Lake City, Utah. March 4th was $650 for a site maintenance for our clients in Florida. March 7th was $2,574.67, which was a breaking ground deposit on the healthcare startup that we're working with in Salt Lake City. So we finished up their branding project, reached that milestone payment, and we are now in development on that project for the website. March 21st, $3,000 was for a website launch. That was phase 3 of a $7,000 project. That site launched on March 21st, and the final invoice was paid. March 29th, $498 was for a website maintenance for one of our clients in Dublin, Ohio. The scope of work for that is just a few hours every month, uploading blog posts, doing a couple LinkedIn posts, etc. March 30th, a milestone payment for a website project, $1,250. That was a milestone payment for this project. So we're onto the development stage into Wix Studio. That client is in California. March 31st, 25 was $360. That was our clients in Marysville for site updates. So that was a retainer of hours for a site we had launched previously. And on March 31st, $129 was for site maintenance for another one of our financial clients in Dublin. So we manage their Webflow sites as well. Like I said, total of 10 transactions in terms of revenue and what the scope of those were. So all the projects for this month were for websites, which if you guys have been following the series for a couple of months, a lot of it looked like design. A lot of it looked like manual contract work. And we're finally at a place where we've transitioned 100% of the revenue to either maintenance or project-based Webflow website marketing work, which is really cool. So we're still cranking away on that front. In terms of expenses, so let me head over to Monarch Money, set the filters. Last month, filters for business and the expenses, hit apply. There we go. So total spending was $2,489.58. And I'll start at the beginning of the month and go through all of our software and everything that we pay for expense-wise in the business. So March 1st, Google Workspace, $19. March 3rd, a networking event with the chamber. I was for AMA, actually. That was $10. March 5th, was $1,500 that was for contractor labor. So labor expenses were up this month. That was for the design phase of our Utah client project to outsource the branding and logo design for that one. And then there was also a $20 software subscription, and that is for our Keywords Everywhere. So that's a yearly payment of $22. That's our Chrome extension and an SEO tool. March 6th, 3 payments totaling $88 for freelancer.com. That's contractor labor as well. So contractor labor is climbing up a little bit, something we want to be mindful of. March 7th, 2025 was $20 to OpenAI, ChatGPT, and we also paid $3. We had a networking event and I bought a connection coffee on the business card. So right off, baby. March 10th, total of $31. That was a refund from a past outsource. March 11th, $63 for Elementor, the software. March 13th, 2025, $534 expense, all for contractor labor. And 480 of that was for Reloom, which is a software tool that was an annual subscription. So that's what a big part of our business. We use that for building wireframes and sitemaps. Highly recommend Reloom, even though it is very expensive. March 25th, 2025, $150 expense to Web Designer Pro. So that was for a networking revenue workshop that we're heading to at the start of May. So it's paid $150 for that, which goes under the networking category write-off. March 29th, Artlist was for $24. That one was a video template for a post for a video post that we made for our website launch. So I paid for an After Effects template to edit the launch post we made for that, which I think was worth it. And then March 30th, total of $84 for Markup, which is our feedback software. That's an annual subscription. So we host all of our websites on there for clients to give feedback on. Great tool, but they are paid now. They no longer have a free plan, which is unfortunate. So those are all of our expenses in the business. $22,489 total. And if I filter that, I see how much of it was contractor labor. I imagine it was a good bit. So if I check the filters and I hit contractor, business, apply, contractor labor totaled $1,612.14, which is not by far, but the highest so far of every month. Most of it was due to outsourcing that branding project. And I've managed to keep contractor labor pretty low. I've done most of the fulfillment myself to this point, but expect that number to climb up because that means we are getting more projects. So cool beans. Next up is going to be, what else are we tracking here? And I have these screenshots in Moxie. Accounts receivable, we have $2,520 accounts receivable. So that's work completed for the past month. That is all for a monthly retainer that is 2 months behind on payment. It's actually has gone through as the time of this recording. So that'll go on the April income statement, but that is accounts receivable. But I didn't want to count it on this month because, the numbers aren't there. So business expenses, personal revenue, non-personal expenses, a screenshot there. The other thing I started tracking this month, like I said, was LinkedIn followers, outbound proposals, and mailing list size. So 4 outbound proposals, offer websites, 4,305 LinkedIn followers, 206 is the size of our mailing list. And now I'm going to go straight into a reflection. So now that we have the financials covered, that's going to wrap it up for the financial part of this monthly retro. But now we're going to get into the review part. So I'm going to go over some wins, losses, and focus areas that I'm taking away and building on for the next month. So some of the wins from this month, key themes, we had some high leverage conversations, building long-term partnerships, growing visibility and credibility, testing remote flexibility. So one thing I do highly recommend to you guys is I basically look through my calendar, all of our meetings, events, client meetings, networking events, just everything that I did this month that was on the calendar. I blocked everything off and I time tracked pretty diligently. Having a conversation with ChatGPT and saying, okay, distill all of these actions into a monthly summary and review. So this is kind of a high-level overview of the things that I would view as wins and losses and things that I want to improve on for the coming month. So some of the wins, and I'll go through these pretty quickly, but recorded 4 podcast interviews with Benny Johnson, president of the AMA, Frank Agan, Amspire Business Connections, Whitney, and Michael Mondragon, and also Bobby from Columbus. So recorded 5 podcasts last month. Every time I record a podcast, I leave in a much better mood than when I started. And I love marketing by design, and I can't wait to grow that to the moon. So it's a personal passion project of mine, and it's also going to serve as a marketing asset as well. We kicked off the project for our partners in Utah. So we developed their wireframes and we got great feedback from them. We had a call with the 3 founders this week, and it was just a really wholesome call. They got a lot of value out of it, and they really appreciated the work. And you guys know, is anytime that we are able to get affirmation and feedback for what we deliver, then it's always a win. We attended the Brickhouse Blue grand opening, so that was one of the positives for this week. We met Nick's family and developed a deepened business relationship, and we got to just meet his kids and his wife, which was awesome. We worked remotely and we traveled to Florida, so that was another part. Is I kind of had this self-limiting belief that I couldn't travel, that I'm unproductive when I'm on the road. And long story short, Katie and I and mom and dad took a trip to Disney Resort in Florida. I worked most of the time, recorded a couple podcasts, did some client updates and interviews and, that front, but I had a great time, and it was good to be out in the weather, change scenery, and just switch things up a little bit. I had a mentoring session with Dan Frock, who owns a very large and successful business in the Columbus Chamber. So that was one of the highlights of my month. Had a nice little mentoring session. We talked about business growth, networking, things that I should be doing, and the mindset that I should be having kind of as a young founder a year or so in. We launched our website for our partners out in California. That was awesome. They took it very well. And yeah, like I said, it's always good to get affirmation. We reconnected with some older people in our network. Not older people, but old connections. Jim, Corey, and Bill. We restarted talks for a potential podcast collaboration that we were doing with a nonprofit. Not a nonprofit, but a business development organization in Columbus that I'm strongly involved with. We met LJ, who's an agency owner in Columbus, had a great meeting with him. We also enrolled into the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. So if you guys don't know what that is a program that has a pretty rigid application process, but it's for startups that are looking for resources to network. They only accept a certain number of people. But we began that enrollment process, and we'll be starting that in May of this year, and I'm super excited. 10 full-day workshops. It's basically a semester-long course almost. But we talk about financial literacy, sales, marketing, everything that, is perfect for my stage of business. They recommend being 1 to 2 years in. So I'm really looking forward to that. We registered for the Josh Hall Revenue Workshop in May. Super excited to meet some of the crew, and we're also going to see Jay Klaus speak, which is one of my biggest role models, so that's going to be really exciting. I had a really close conversation with mom about life balance, overworking, personal health, mental health, all that stuff. And we closed the month with a bottom line total for revenue high. So this was one of the highest months so far. And if we look back at revenue specifically for the year, March wraps up Q1 of 2025. So on the road to 100K a year, we are slightly behind pace. So we've made $24,460 in the first quarter of this year. So a long way to go, but we've got traction. We've got started. We had a rough month last month, but we definitely bounced back. I'm going to go more into the losses this month. So lessons and takeaways that we are going to improve on for next month. Key themes of our losses: overextension without proper boundaries, gaps in back end, physical and mental health took a back seat. We lost a well-nurtured proposal with one of my biggest contracts, the biggest proposal I'd ever put in, company in Columbus. We met with them 6 times. It was a grueling proposal process. I even made a relationship with the business development rep that was my point of contact throughout the proposal process. And we got to the final 2, and they ended up going a different direction. So a very rough couple of days there when we got that news, but we kept a great relationship, reached out to the founder, set a meeting. We actually, as of the time of this recording, we had a call with him, and, he lives in Marysville, so we'll probably meet up for coffee at some point in the future. So never burn bridges, but a lot of good lessons learned, but I would technically count that as a loss. We did work a lot this month. I'm a big believer that you have to kind of set the conditions for success by, putting in the time. And I've acknowledged my parents, I've acknowledged my family. Everyone that knows me knows that I am very accountable towards setting and reaching the goals that I set for myself, and reaching deadlines, showing up for myself, and really just pushing it as hard as I can, because this is a phase of life for me where I am trying to build a business, and there will be a time when I know what I'm doing is kind of unsustainable in terms of workload with the podcast, with content, with, MMG and the client load that I'm working with. But as I scale, I'm focusing more on delegation, hiring. We had a record high in terms of outsourcing this month. So those are the things that we're trying to improve. But like I said, there are always ways to improve. We lost our luggage during the Florida trip. Thankfully, they have since been mailed back, but we had a slightly scary moment there that I was not grateful for. We missed a couple execution items, so we didn't reach our goals. We didn't integrate our email sequence, which was one of the priorities I had set for last month. We didn't reach our podcast guest outreach goal, so that's a little unfortunate, but just got pushed to the back burner, and I was not accountable to doing that. We did not reach our LinkedIn outreach goal, so the goal is to send 20 connects every day and do our 10-10-10. So engage with 10 new prospects via DMs, post every day. We did post every day, which is a good thing, but just time in the inbox was not sufficient, and that's because there was a lot of travel. I have my morning routine of getting on there, and to be honest, I didn't spend as much time on there as I could have. But I'm aware that we had a lot of projects this month, so I don't totally view that as a loss. We had some wasted expenses, so we hired some not so good freelancers, and this is honestly, it's not a loss. It's I knew this was going to happen. I'm going to waste money when I start to outsource. I'm going to hire bad people. But it's all part of the game that we play. Yeah, but I had a lot of communication issues. I didn't communicate the task very well for the site that I needed to go. Then the task I needed to do on the website was fixing this, section over scroll issue. But yeah, that one's accountability on me, is not hiring well and not communicating tasks efficiently. So for next month, our focus areas and lessons are to be more accountable to calendar and changes, even when you don't feel like that. So like I said, before every day, I'm very diligent about setting my calendar, going in, and there are times when I just don't want to stick to the schedule that I set the night before, and there's no reason for it other than being bored, not wanting to get back to work. And so I'll go to the gym, I'll go on a walk, I'll come back for a break, but I want to create the relationship with my calendar that is the default, and that's what I'm accountable to. So being more accountable to the calendar are the goals for the coming month. The next focus area and lesson for April is take deep breaths and pause every time you begin to feel overwhelmed and impulsive towards binge eating and staying up late. Two of my personal struggles for this month was, not thinking things through. And I do have a bad habit of getting into poor sleep, over caffeinating, and then compensating in other areas, which I'm starting to see sometimes. So just being more mindful, being kinder to myself, all priorities. And the last one was to enjoy moments of conversation, and small resolution. Meetings with no agenda, as I call them. So just networking meetings. Like I said, re-engaging some of our past network and just having coffee, having lunch. And that's something that I'm really proud I made time for, because like I said, whether it's the podcast or whether it's just a networking meeting, I always feel better afterwards, sort of the shared journey of entrepreneurship, especially when there's a lot of common ground we can relate to. So that is going to wrap it up for the wins, losses, and focuses for next month. And that's going to wrap it up for the retro as a whole. So thank you guys for listening to the audio of this monthly retro, an income report for March of 2025. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this or found value in it, and it's something that you want to see more of in the future. Like I said, I'll still do them every month for YouTube regardless, just for accountability. Be sure to check out the description for all of our other resources. So join our mailing list for the podcast. And if you have any design, marketing, or revenue growth needs for your B2B business, or you just want to hop on a call, that link will be below as well. You guys know what I do. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week on the pod.